Yes, that's right, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, and today I'm making some new Dyneema trapeze lines for my Tornado. The first one and most obvious is the actual rope itself. So with the measurements that I've taken, each trapeze line, the total length, once it's made, wants to be 655, and then we want an extra 60 centimeters for each line for the actual splicing. We've got our new trapeze handle. These are the Ronstand trapeze handles, very nice. And then we've also got some thimbles to go on the bottom of the trapezes. And then for the actual making of the trapeze lines, starting off, long tape measure so that we can get the length absolutely bang on. Then we've got a regular ruler for measuring with as well, a marker pen so that we know where we're going. We've got what's called a D-splice, which you can actually make yourself out of a piece of stiff wire, and then instead of a handle you could just wrap some tape round it, and then you've got a D-splice. And then we've got a fid set and chopping board and razor blade for cutting the Dyneema. These are all supplied from Melcheski Composites, who make a really nice kit. And all the rest of the parts have been supplied by sailingchandlery.com, probably the best place for you to get your rope and other parts from in the UK. Okay, so I've got 4 to make. So I think what I'm going to do is make the other 3 so that then I've practiced, and then I'll film making the last one. Okay, so here is what we are going to be ending up with. Here's one that I made earlier. So at the bottom end, we're going to have the hard eye, then the trapeze handle, and there is the tail spliced inside, just there. The top end is a soft loop like this, which we're going to attach to the hound's shackle on the boat using a lark's head. So that means we're going to pass it through like this. Then we'll pass the trapeze handle through there, we'll pull it through, and then that is going to end up going on like that. Now, important is that the shackle that your lark's heading that onto is a soft rounded shackle rather than one with hard edges like this, because that could wear away at the rope. The first thing is that Dyneema, for its weight, is actually stronger than the steel cable that we'd usually use. Second reason is you can make your own trapeze lines and other lines for the boat as well using Dyneema. Very nice. And the third reason is it looks cool. So that is always going to do it, especially in this hot pink colour. And I'm not going to lie to you, but I don't do a lot of splicing. So in preparation for making these trapezes, I actually had to refer back to the splicing lesson that I did as part of the Joyrider Classroom series. If you want to know more about that, just click on the link here. Okay, so let's get stuck in. We're going to do the hard end first, the bottom end with the handle. We're going to measure 25 centimeters from the end for the hard end. Then I'm just going to mark that all the way round. What I'm going to do is tie it so that the end of our rope is in exactly the right spot. I'm going to tie that on there using a clove hitch. Okay, I'm then going to hook this on, measure 655, because we don't need the total. That was just the total for the whole piece of rope. 655 is what we want for the finished length, and that's what's important right now. Just going to measure that and I'll be right back. What we're going to do now, so this is the 25 centimeter end. I'm going to take our hard eye, and that mark is going to go right at the bottom of the eye like that. we're then going to pass our fid, and I'm using the smallest fid possible that the rope will go into reasonably easily. To get it to go in, just going to bunch that up a little bit so then the fid can pass through, and I'm passing that through so it's really tight to the eye there. Okay, I'll then put in the end of the Dyneema. Get that lined up again. So it's pulling as tight as possible, and then we'll pull the fid through. We can see how the Dyneema is there passing through itself, and then we're going to pull that nice and tight. All right, so that's the first part. We're then going to pass the fid right next to where we've gone through already. We're going to pass it through the short end. Bunch it up a little bit, make it easier to pass through, and we'll pass that kind of halfway through the short end. We're then going to work our way to the end of the line. So then we're passing the other end through, so that's going to go into the fid, and I'll pull that through. It's all right if it comes off there, and we can then pull all of that through. And there we are. This is the bit that makes it a locking Brummel splice. So what we've done already, that is enough to hold the weight, but that will hold all of the weight necessary. But of course we want to tidy up and make sure that can never come undone. So we're going to do that by burying the tail. So what we're going to do is see where the tail comes to, and then I'm going to add, what am I adding there? Another 8 centimeters. Then I'm just going to bunch this up a little bit like that, and then we'll take our D splice and we are going to enter, and the D splice is going inside the rope, and we're coming all the way down. Okay, and we're going to go as far in as we can to the part of the splice we've already done, which is right there, and then there he is, just there. Now, before we try putting the rope on, what we want to do, and this is an important point, is we don't want the ends of the rope heat sealed. We want them to be really quite fluffy, if you like. So we're going to take the razor blade on the block here, and I'm going to cut quite an angle into it. Now, what I've found with this particular rope, this is 3mm SK78 Dyneema. This has been quite a tight one. So with the tighter one, I just need to put a bit more of an angle on here, so there's less material at the end. And now that we've got that on there, we're just going to bring a good amount of the D splice out at the end, and we can just spread it open a little bit, and we're just going to put a small amount of the Dyneema through the end. You'll know if it's not enough because it will come off and you'll just have to put it through again. And then we're just gently rotating it and pulling it back to pull it into itself, moving our fingers to where the end is. Nice and gentle. All right. Okay, and there it is, it's come out of the other end. We can take the D splice off, and what I'm going to do now is just pull it through. We've got a little twist in there, so just a bit of manipulation. I'm going to pull it through from this end, make sure that is all in there. There we go. And then this is the moment of satisfaction. I'm going to start here and we're just going to pull it tight. There we go. If you've got tails sticking out of the end once you've pulled it all tight like that, then that means you've got a bit too much tail for where your D-splice went in. So you just need to pull a little bit of tail out, shorten it, and then that, as long as it's covered, then we're all good. Okay, next thing we need to do, and this is the most important not to forget, is to put on our trapeze handle before we do the other end. So we're going to work our way to the end of the rope. Here's our trapeze handle, so that is going to go on that way. And what I've found with these trapeze handles is that the rope, you can't just, from this end, you can't just put it in like that. So I'm actually using the biggest fid possible that will pass through the trapeze handle. So to get it through, I'm like pushing down. There we go. And now, at the moment, there's no way that that is going to go in there. So I'm going to do the same that I did at the other end and cut a good amount of angle into it with the blade. There we go. So now I'm just going to push the rest of the fid through. All right, we've pulled it off. We're going to have to start again. So I'm just going to leave a bit of a loop this time to make sure that I don't pull it off. Yeah, and I can see it's coming through. There we go. So that is actually the most tricky bit I found. And then we'll pull all of the rope through the trapeze handle. And this is actually pretty tight for this part with the buried tail to go in. So what I'm going to do is I've put the other end around a post so I can hold it securely, and then I'm just going to pull that down. Okay, now that is very satisfying, and that has absolutely locked this end in position. Very nice. So here's the mark that I made for the other end. Now, my soft end, the loop is going to be 15 centimeters. So we'll measure 15 centimeters. And then, so this original mark, that is going to be the total length. Loop 15 centimeters. So pulling that loop in there, and then we'll put another mark. So there we've now got 2 marks to mark where our loop is going to finish. And like we did before, we're going to put the fid through the long piece. Just bunch it up a little bit, and I'm going to put it right through where we made that mark, because that's where the loop is going to end. Okay, and we really only need to get the smallest amount of the line into the fid, because when we pull it out like that, then we are good. Now, of course, we can't use the same method on this end, because we've got the trapeze handle and that splice on the other end. So what are we going to do? Well, first thing that we're going to do, same as before, is we're going to pass the fid through, this time the short end, through the short end. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take a much larger fid, one that will take both parts of the loop inside. So yes, that is definitely large enough. Well, I know that because I've done some other ones. And I'm going to use the first fid to help us get the bigger fid through. Don't know if that's a good technique. It seems to work well. And we're just going to push that in there halfway like we have been doing already. Okay, so then we're going to take the two parts of the loop, kind of getting them in there with a bit of a twisty motion to get them in. Again, we only need a little bit in so that we can grab hold of it and pull it through. Now we are left with this kind of weird snail shell looking loop in there. So to get rid of that loop, what we're going to do, we can go back to our original smaller fid and we're going to pass that through the loop which the loop is going through, removing the twist from the loop. Okay, so there the rope has come through, and now we're going to pull. Found it easier with the other ones if I kind of pull this downwards. There we go, so I've just got that the other side, so that twist is out now. So that did take a little bit of a pull to get that to come out. And now we can bury the tail again, the same that we did on the other side. Now I've got way too much tail here, so I'm going to cut it down. Same as before, 20 centimeters for the tail to bury. Okay, so this part exactly the same that we did before. Okay, and there we go, we're just pulling that back in. I've heard and seen quite a lot about that you should stitch your Dyneema trapeze lines as well, but I don't see it being necessary. So if you are already a Dyneema trapeze line maker, do you stitch your trapeze lines? And if you do, then could you just put Y? I can guess that the Y is for extra security, but is it necessary? So what I found the trick here is don't squeeze very hard with your fingers and don't try too hard. It's like the harder you try, the more difficult it becomes. As I said, this particular line, maybe it's because it's pink, is a bit tighter than the lines that I'm used to. Okay, that took some doing. Lot of twisty. So there we go. The end of the Dyneema is out of the tail. So now, before I tighten up the sheath, let's call it the sheath, although it's not a sheath, I'm just going to pull it through, and then the satisfaction is there. Very nice. Okay, so there we go. That is ready to lark's head onto the hound's shackle on the Tornado, ready to go for some action. If you're interested in the Classroom series, you can check that out here. If you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Joyrider TV. And if you want to see some catamaran sailing action, just click on the link here and that will just keep going for the rest of the day. Thanks very much, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV.